theme for the film. These characters, all the characters you'll see, were moving through a world shaped by invisible forces, political, historical, and literal. And all these forces were beyond their control. From there, it cuts to a German city. It's Bremen, where the camera follows an older man as he's walking through a demonstration. If you remember, the signs were they were walking for the proletariat. You know, everybody should be equal. And the man we see who's walking into the red light district, his name is Ali. He's a retired uh, guest worker in he's Turkish. He meets Yetter, also Turkish, a sex worker in her 40s. The young man from the opening scene turns out to be Ali's son, Najat, a professor of German literature in the nearby city of Hamburg. Besides the geographical disorientation that we go from Turkey right into Germany all at once with that opening flash forward, which is a flash forward, by the way, at the beginning, what we will eventually see at the end, a stark contrasts are being set up quickly and economically. He works very quickly in this film. We're constantly moving forward. On one hand, Ali's older generation of immigrants, homesick but too used to their Bremen neighborhood to do much about it. He's steeped in his Turkish culture in his own neighborhood, drinking the raki, making Turkish food. On the other hand, Ali's son is completely integrated and at home in Germany, having successfully made what is a tricky transition from working class immigrant, from his father, the working class immigrant, to a life as an intellectual. He's complete with a beautiful apartment with a high ceiling, book lined apartment. But since we have already seen him in Turkey, where he seems more Turkish than German at the very beginning, he seems more bohemian than bourgeois. We know this is not quite what it seems. Who is he really? With equal starkness, the director sketches the precarious position of the female characters. When we first see Yetter, she is in what looks like a rented cage of a room. Notice how he photographs that. First of all, she's in the basement. It looks like a cage of a room where she sees her clients decked out with blonde hair, red leather outfit, black thigh-high boots, and crazy pictures and paraphernalia all over the place. But yet, when Ali listens to her and hears her name, he says, "You're Turkish." He makes a proposition. He will pay her a monthly stipend to live with him and be faithful only to him, because we get the feeling Ali is a lonely man. Ali is a lonely man. And without her wig and in street clothes, Yetter looks like any mid-40s woman going on a streetcar. But she's been followed, we see, and accosted by two Turkish Islamists who threaten to cut her up if she continues as a prostitute. Unprotected, she decides to take Ali up on his offer. In the apartment, Yetta befriends Najat, who comes to visit. We know he's a German. We've seen he's a German literature professor. Their friendship grows as Najat learns Yetta's secret. She has a 27-year-old daughter, Ayten, in Turkey. To hide the reality of her sex work, Yetta tells her daughter she works in a shoe shop, even jokes that she sends her shoes as a ruse to maintain the cover while she finances Ayten's education. Najat is deeply moved by this whole idea of her paying for her education, realizing she doesn't want her following in her footsteps. The sacrifice that she makes. However, this bond causes great consternation for Ali. He thinks, he's jealous. He's consumed by jealousy when he sees how she's talking with Najat. And a toxic sense He has a toxic sense of ownership over her. And Ali acts out in a fit of rage, eventually slapping Yetta so hard that she falls and dies. And since the segment had begun with the title Yetta's death, it is a death foretold. And her brutal and sudden exit does not come as a surprise so much as to how it happened. When with the two men who were threatening her, how is she going to die? And here we see it. With Ali now in prison, Najat takes Yetta's body back to Turkey for burial. It is another parallel moment in the film that will come back to us later on. Because if you remember, as we see Yetta's coffin coming off the plane, later on we'll see Lada's going up into the plane. Najat, vowing to find Ayten with the help of a cousin, begins searching in Istanbul. While posting the flyers, he notices the German bookstore for sale. And in another moment of irony, the owner remarks, who is German, that he wants to go back to Germany. He wants the German culture. And he says it's quite fitting that he sees that a German man wants to go back to Germany, who owns a German bookstore in Turkey, and a Turkish man who teaches German wants to return to Turkey. An ironic twist. With this decision to stay, we again see Najat riding off to the Turkish countryside as he was in the beginning. It's another flash forward. Where is he going? Where is he going? The film's second part is announced by an equally, what I would call, merciless title, Lada's Death. In Istanbul, a beautiful young woman, just to depart for a second, in Istanbul, we see a beautiful young woman who we had seen before. We saw her earlier. If you remember, Ayten was asleep in Najat's classroom. If you think back to the first time we see Najat teaching German, Ayten is sleeping in the room, in the back of the room, when he's talking about Goethe. And he says Goethe did not believe in revolution. He did not believe in contradiction, in contradicting nature. Why would anyone want to see a rose bloom in winter? Is the line he's delivering as we see her asleep in the back of the room. She's involved in a demonstration in the second part where we see a gun and it arrives at her feet. She hides it and manages to evade the police. She's obviously a radical activist. And while her roommates are arrested, she escapes to Germany, where she ends up in Hamburg using the name Gül Korkmaz and finding temporary asylum with a Turkish group, who then casts her out because she doesn't pay them back and they feel she's useless. Without money or contacts, she winds up wandering to the university. She's also looking for her mother. We realize now that Ayten is Yetta's daughter. She says she's looking at shoe stores. She's looking for shoe stores. So that should give you a clue. She winds up, and we see her again at a different angle at this point in Najat's room, in Najat's classroom. So now, if you remember the first time, this will cement it in. This is Akin's way of showing us these parallels, these what we call near misses in this film. There are near misses, parallels happening all the time. And she's searching for a mother, and we realize who she is. She befriends Lata, a female student who helps her out and brings her home and offers her bed and board. Lata's mother, Suzanne, warms neither to Gül's blunt language nor her radical politics, but loves her daughter too much to put a stop to her infatuation with the passionate and fiery Ayten. When Ayten argues with Suzanne, and she says, "Don't talk that way in my house, talk that way in your house," she gets mad and leaves. Lata, and she asks Lata to take her to help her find her mother. And with the two remaining, ignorant of each other's fate, only we see how very close another missed encounter becomes. As Lada and Aitan are driving on the road, Aitan now Gull, are driving down the road, we see the train right next to them, and who's sitting in it? Najat, and Yetter. Another missed opportunity. Only we see how very close they became. And it overlaps. It's another what Akin calls a temporal register, a near miss, and it recalls another great director. Here he's really, it's not just Fastbinder, but I don't know how many of you have seen Krzysztof Kieslowski's three-color trilogy, Red, Blue, and White. Yes, I know. Some of you have seen it. I'm sure there's a few of you have seen it with me. But in that, it deals with the same thing. Near misses, how people who don't know each other cross paths and will come together at some point. This is what we call a hyperlink film. This is a film of people, disparate people, who for some reason or another, their fates will be tied up with one another. When Aydin is deported back to Istanbul, Lada follows her and finding she's in prison, tries to get her released. It is here we see the greatest of missed opportunities and near misses in the film. When Lada walks into Najat's bookstore, not realizing she's staring at Aydin's mother's picture. Yetta's picture is staring at her from the wall, and using Aydin, because now Aydin had been using an assumed name. She'd been using the name Gull. So when she's looking at Yetta, she has no idea that her mother's name is Yetta. And she now also will rent a spare room in Najat's apartment. Talk about people crossing. When she visits Aydin, what she does for her unwittingly makes her a go-between for the Kurdish activists, for Aydin's activist group. And the gun she's instructed to find becomes the instrument of Lada's death. And if you think back and remember when Najat was talking to the police about Aydin because he wanted to pay for her education, after Yetta dies, he goes to Turkey, he wants to pay for her education. And the cop says, wouldn't you be better off paying for the education of the kids out in the street? The impoverished kids on the street? Well, to finance their education, those are the same kids he's talking about. Kill Lata. Uneducated, wandering the streets, finding the gun and killing her. The third part, which leads us into the third part of the film, which bears the film's title, The Edge of Heaven. And we see the surviving characters, Ali and Suzanne, arriving in Turkey as Lada's coffin is going up into the plane. And their quests intersect. I mean, I love that shot. If you remember the shot where you see Ali, and he's obviously been let out of prison. He's coming back to Turkey, and he moves away. And who's standing in the other line? Suzanne, Lada's mother. These two have something in common, but don't know it. And it brings another near miss into the frame. And one of the most powerful scenes in the film, Suzanne is coming to terms with her grief. We see her coming to terms with her grief. And then she meets with Najat in the hotel lobby. On the way to see her room, and Najat, Najat invites her. She goes and she asks, can I see her room? Can I see Lata where Lata stayed? And on the way to her room, she realizes, she relates to Najat. And if you remember the conversation, she says to Najat, he said, this was the second time she was in India. She was in India 30 years before as a student. Where was she going? She was on her way to India. Now I want you to think back to when Iton meets Lada. Where was Lada for 3 years? In India. She was in India. She just gotten back from India, and now she met Iton. And here is Suzanne meeting Najat and traveling back to Turkey. There's like a full circle here going on. and so we have that conversation. Lada's words, when she reads the journal that Lada had written, her diary, whatever it was, the book she finds, Lada reveals that in this quest that she was on, she came to understand how much like her mother she is, and how Suzanne sees herself in Lada, how she thinks my mother sees herself in me. And in a touching moment, she sees Lata smiling at her from across the room. It's a surreal moment. And she sees Lata smiling at her from the other side, which is the title of the film, which is basically The Edge of Heaven, which is ironically the German title. And then we see Ali, and then we cut from that to Ali in tears, sitting off the coast of Istanbul, finishing the book that Najat had given him at the beginning. Now, the book, you notice it flashes on the title, and it's in Turkish. Well, the book is called The Blacksmith's Daughter. It's a famous book from Turkey. It's been translated into many languages, and it's the story of a man and his relationship with his youngest daughter, and how women can be overlooked and how important a place they play in a man's life. And that's why he's sitting there in tears, because Najat had given him this book, and he's realizing the wrongs he's done, the sins he's committed. And then we go back and we see Najat learns that Ali had gone back. Remember, his cousin says to him, he's back, but he doesn't think you want to see him. He says to Najat, but I don't think he wants to see you. And he went back to his village. And Najat does something there. First of all, he throws his books on the floor. He's angry because his father didn't come to him. But if you remember before, he said, I don't have a father. My father is not a murderer. But he takes the picture of Yetter off the wall. And now there's a blank spot there. There's that blank spot on the wall, and he crumples it, throws it away. Another moment, and Suzanne asks Najat to take him as a tenant. You remember, can I stay in her room? And we see her walking. Now we see her when she comes from another familiar shot. When she walks out of the building, she's walking with her handbag in the same way Lada was when she left the building. The same. She says hello to the two men playing chess, the same way her daughter did. Literally and figuratively, she's walking in her daughter's footsteps, because where is she going? To confront Iton and offering to help her. The same act. She's committing the same act her daughter did. And when Najat explains the celebration of Bayram to Suzanne concerning Ibrahim's faith being tested by God, and that he sacrificed his son Ismail, Lada tells him, we have the same story. We have the same story, the story of Abraham. So here we see the meeting of three faiths: Christian, Muslim, and Jewish. The same story across three faiths. It's a universal. And Najat relates to Suzanne at that moment when he asked his father if he would, when he was a little boy, he asked his father, would he sacrifice, him too? He said he was always afraid of the story. Would you sacrifice me too? And he remembers his father saying to him, he would even make God his enemy in order to protect his son. He would even make God his enemy in order to protect his son. There is redemption in this world. This sparks Najat to leave to see Ali. He says to her, "Would you mind the bookstore for a few days? I have to go somewhere." And we see where he's going. We come full circle. We come full circle back to the opening scene. But we also know where Susan is going. After he leaves, Aitan leaves prison. She's repented in prison. She gets out and she goes to see Suzanne, who's offered to help her. Suzanne takes her in her arms and Aitan agrees to stay with her. So what we've seen now is a woman who lost a daughter finds a daughter who lost a mother. I mean, the parallels, the parallels. The film concludes by completing this temporal circle. Najat has traveled back to the Black Sea to find his father, Ali, who has been released from prison and deported. Throughout the film, Najat has struggled with his father's sin. But after his conversation with Suzanne about the sacrifice of Abraham, he has reached a place of quiet reconciliation. As he sits on the beach, the camera lingers. We hear the tide coming in. This waiting is deeply symbolic. It signifies a shift from the linear time of the first two acts of the film, where everyone was rushing, missing each other, and meeting tragic ends, to a kind of spiritual time, a spiritual moment, by waiting for the man who caused so much pain. Najat is breaking the cycle of violence and misconnection. He is choosing to be present. He is choosing to be present in the moment. The Black Sea itself becomes a character here. As the fisherman warned him earlier, you cannot trust the weather. This suggests that the future for these characters is not necessarily happy or settled, but it is finally honest. The waiting represents a suspension of judgment for us and for Najat. Najat isn't there to lecture, to fix, to do anything. He's there to witness his father's return. The final image in the film suggests that the edge of heaven is not a place you reach, but a state of being where you finally stop running and start forgiving. For the characters' futures, it implies. For Najat and Ali, it is a fragile rebuilding of a father-son bond that was nearly destroyed by a moment of rage. For Suzanne and Aitan, it is a bridge between Germany and Turkey, built not on politics, but on shared grief and the New Testament ethics of turning the other cheek, So in essence, he's dealing with Turkey, a country that stands with one foot in the ancient world, one foot in the modern world, one foot in an ancient religion, one foot in the modern religion. And for us, it's a reminder that while we may live in a world of near misses and political divisiveness, the act of simply waiting for one another, of being available for reconciliation, is the only way to find peace on the other side. The only way to find peace on the other side. The film leaves us on that shore. The weather is calm in that moment. The horizon is open, wide. He shoots it in a wide shot. And for the first time in the entire film, someone is exactly where they're supposed to be. Someone is exactly where they're supposed to be and where they want to be. While all the performances of the the lead performances of the film is so strong in this film, and what is the most relevance in the casting is the actress who plays Suzanne. Her name is Hannah Shugula, who plays Suzanne. I don't know how many of you have ever seen her before, but her performance and her presence in this film cannot be overstated. As I said before, a lot of what he's doing in this film was an homage to and a continuance of Rainer Werner Fassbinder, the director. Well, Hanna Schugula is considered the godmother of modern German cinema, and she was Rainer Werner Fassbinder's muse. She appeared in many of his films. She acts as a living bridge between the 1970s era of German guilt and the modern era of globalized Germany, meaning with the Turks and everybody else coming in. Her transformation from a cautious mother to a woman committing herself to a radical stranger in a Turkish prison is the ultimate symbol of the bridge that the director is trying to build, a dialogue between Germany and Turkey that acknowledges the pain of the past, but sits on the shore waiting for the weather to clear, waiting for the weather to clear. The beautiful cinematography and the scenery that moves back and forth between pastoral idyls and urban chaos as it takes us on a journey that ends with the final image as quiet and beautiful as any that we can see in cinema. It is rarely flashy, which makes its structural choices even more impactful. What happens in the film? The film's transitions between Germany and Turkey, the constant going back and forth through the shots of the sea and the airport, the Black Sea in particular, is filmed with that wide cinematic lens that suggests infinity. It represents the edge between life and death and between the two countries. I hope you notice the subtle shifts in light in the film. Germany is often rendered in a cool, sharp tones, while Istanbul and the Black Sea coast have a warmer, dustier, and more organic glow to it. This visually signals Najat's internal move from the cold intellectual of the university as a cold intellectual to the visceral emotional reality of his roots, of what pulls him back to Turkey. The music was wonderful in this film. It blends traditional Turkish instrumentation with contemporary European electronic and folk beats. This isn't just background music. It is the what he called the lingua franca of the film. The music bridges us between Germany and Turkey. It suggests that while the characters struggle to speak each other's literal languages, the music bridges a cultural gap within the film. There is even diegetic music in the film. Diegetic meaning it's music that arises out of the scene. The characters hear it as we hear it. And it's that music at the beginning and at the end that Najat hears in the store. Again, it's that singer, and it's reiterated that he was a very popular singer who died young, a singer who died of cancer following Chernobyl, signifying a historical moment in the film. And by using music that is real in the world of the characters, the director grounds the film in a specific historical and cultural reality. And that's what he's given us here by showing this. It's again, this is a director dealing with the Turkish immigration to Germany, what the result of it has been, the pull back to Turkey, people lost between two worlds. It's worlds in collision, if you will, the German and the Turkish. It's the Germans have dealt with this before after World War II in a different way, coming to terms with their identity, and once again in this century, coming to terms with the Turks, coming to terms with the Turkish population in Germany. So there you and today it's regarded as a classic in the oeuvre of German film. And he is regarded as one of their great directors today. So there you have my take on the film. And I think it's important to understand how this film works and how wonderful he handles it. So now I'd like to hear from some of you what you think about it, what you have to say about it. I already see Wendy Rothfield's hand. Yes, Wendy, jump in.
I loved it. This was probably one of the best films I have ever seen in my life. it captured so much the humanity of the characters, the political issues, the personal issues. It was wonderful. It was so wonderful. I'm going to really watch it again.
Oh, well, that's good. That's what I would advise. Thank you, Wendy. Phyllis.
Oh, Shelley, thank you so much for choosing this film, and you did a fantastic job of explaining it and dissecting it. This is about the third time I've seen it, and I said to myself, okay, I already saw this. Should I watch it again? And I'm so glad I did. It was like going home and meeting
Yeah.
people that I already knew, and it was just such a pleasure to see it all unfold. And the brilliance of the screenplay and the interweaving of all these stories and characters, the doubling of the characters, two daughters who are rebellious, and just like how people are both sides of each other. Seeing that it's done by other directors, but he did a masterful job of this. And the casting was fantastic. The characters, the story was so absorbing. It was great. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed revisiting it.
Oh, Phyllis, it's my pleasure. And I'm so glad you said that because it is one of my favorite films. But it's also, yes, when you mention, the two daughters who both resist their parents, think of who these two daughters are. A German daughter resisting the past of Germany, and a
Right.
Turkish daughter resisting what's been happening in Turkey with, the past of Turkey. So it's logical. It's logical. I mean, there's a logic to the film. I mean, it just
Yeah.
works so well, when you put it into context, and you just did as well. So it is important to understand. Thank you. Thank
Yeah, and
you.
you have the doubling of the mother and daughter too.
Daughter.
I mean, they were
Yes.
carbon copies of each other at different stages of their lives. And, probably the father and son as well. I mean, he found that connection with his dad. So, I mean, there's so much to talk about. So it was terrific. Thank you
Yeah,
again.
my
Mhm.
pleasure. Who's next? Anybody else out there? My God, so quiet. Nobody has anything to say? Not even Sandra Lefkowitz? No? You're speechless? Yeah, Jackie.
It was not necessarily one of our favorite films, but there were parts of it that we really did enjoy. And I should be a little bit ashamed to say that the coffins coming and going, while that's really not funny, we actually did think of that as a bit of comic relief. And we enjoyed basically the foreshadowing of what was going to happen too. And like you were talking about, the duality of things, like, they walk in and the sign is not there anymore, that kind of thing. So I thought it was very interesting in that respect.
Uh-huh. It would be even more interesting if you see it again, because that was really what Phyllis was saying when she said these are characters you become familiar with. And if you watch the film again, you become even more familiar with them because you know what's going to happen, but you're really watching how they're acting, how they're reacting. Not even so much how they're acting, but how they're reacting to each other. And it makes more and more sense as you watch it. You begin to see how the director, weave the screenplay in and out the way he does. So terrific. Thank you, Jackie. Sandra, were you going to weigh in?
I'm not, I think I'm unmuted.
Yes.
We loved the film. We thought it was brilliant. And what I really love is the juxtaposition of the Germans and the Turks. I think that was a good pair, uh, because they're not so similar at all, and yet their human emotions are so much the same. And I think that one of the things that I enjoy about some of the films with the hyperlinks is that you have chosen films where culturally there may be great differences, but there are terrific similarities that remind you of humanity.
Mhm. Mhm. Also, you have to think back to my reasoning for showing the two films, Bliss and this film. Bliss dealt with internal conflict within Turkey. That's what I was showing, the internal conflict in Turkey between the modern and the traditional. A young man who's wedded to the traditional and then learns when he brings this girl into the modern world, both of them learn what it means to become part of the modern world. To throw off the chains, to throw off the bad traditions of the past. When they wanted to kill her, first of all, but we know why. But all of that, and now here I was dealing with the external conflict of Turkey and Germany, naturally, of the two. So there was a method to my madness, just so you understand, with these two films. Okay, Karen.
Well, I just wanted to mention some of my favorite scenes. The when Najet was driving through the tunnel or lane of trees, I think that's just a beautiful that's a beautiful scene. And I also like the part where Najet and Suzanne were in the restaurant. Did I get the name right, Suzanne? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. They had all the food in the little dishes, so you could see all the different foods. And then when the jet was sitting by the ocean watching the waves, I thought that was a beautiful scene. Also, I think
Yeah.
that was
Yeah, and I'm glad you remarked about the driving sequence, which is we don't know where he's going at that point in time. We
right.
don't know what point in time it is. It's really another flash forward, but he's also happy. He's sitting behind the wheel and he's smiling. He's feeling good, and we see a tension gone from him that we saw during the film in the real world. That tension is lifted because he has a destination in mind, as we see at the end. But it's a way of also showing that he's home. He's in Turkey. He's where he wants to be. This really seems to be his place. But it's interesting that it's a Germany run as a German bookstore in Turkey. He's brought part of him with him.
Yeah.
A melding of two worlds. A melding
Right.
of two worlds. Yeah.
The bookstore
Yeah.
was another one of my favorite scenes too.
Yeah.
Going in there and seeing all the books.
Yes. Yes. Also, how friendly, he says to the kid that's working there, make tea, make
Yeah.
two chai. And then later on, the Jot repeats it when Lana walks in. Would you like a cup of tea? Yes, make two teas. And he sits and engages her in conversation. It's an icebreaker, so to speak. It's wonderful.
Right.
Thank you, Karen. Rachel?
Okay, for me, I feel like Jackie and Larry. It was a good movie, but not one of my favorites. Some of the editing I had problems with. Like, for instance, after the father kills the woman, the next scene is him in prison. And I wanted to know throughout the movie, I never got the impression what he really felt. Was he remorseful? I never got any kind of viewpoint. And for me, that bothered me in the movie. And I know there was a lot of symbolism, which I do appreciate. And I do appreciate the symbolism of the mother and daughter. For me, that scene with the mother when she's in that room and the way it was filmed was excellent. You felt her emotions. And that was the one time throughout the whole movie that I really felt the emotion. A lot of it for me was more surface. That I didn't get a strong feeling for the characters like I did in Bliss.
Okay, that's understandable. But I will tell you that sometimes, and this is what I call grand filmmaking, is the fact that you don't have to hear words to express remorse. When you see Ali finishing the book and putting it down, and you see him crying, it's an ambiguous moment. He may be crying over his own sins, over what, my God, what did I do? As a father, what did I do? As a man, what did I do? And he's in tears. And, it could be interpreted as the regret, he's of what happened to him, and his son, what he did to Yetter. It is a moment in the film, and sometimes it's economy. As we say, sometimes you have to be economic in filmmaking, and you don't have to show things to understand that they're happening. It is an ellipsis. When he inadvertently kills her, which she starts to cry about, my God, what did I do? And then the next thing you know, he's going to prison. We don't have to see the courtroom. We don't have to see. We know, okay, he's going to jail. And he even says it's a small room, where they're putting him. He's going to prison. He's first realizing I'm in prison, and the window is above him. His view of heaven is not easy. His view of heaven is not an easy one. There is so much going on in this filmmaker's mind that I just can't help but interpret. And I think as you see this film again, you can see what he's trying to do. Sandra?
Well, I think you said something just now that I think is really the crux of the film. The economy of the film gives the viewer an opportunity to enter into different segments of a person. And it's not meant as a book would be different. They'd have much more time in a book. So I think that a second view, or even just sometimes sitting back with it and having a discussion about it, really credits the director and the screenwriter with the ability to take the moment that's important to what they're really saying, which are the parallels in people's lives. And
Oh,
both
definitely.
the external and the internal. I mean, I thought that was an important comment that really, I was glad you made that.
Well, thank you. I think one of the things we also have to understand is our own cultural, I guess, dissonance within looking at the film. It's a German film. It's a German Turkish film, and if it resonates with us in certain ways, is what kind of stories do we tell that are like this, that can be like this? Do we talk about the experience within our own country, within our history of black and white, literally, of black people and white people, and how their responses to situations, or any other culture? We're a blend of so many different cultures that these stories can come up in so many different ways. And they do. We see films that deal with these things, but we're much more comfortable because it's our culture, is a mixed culture. Now, when we're looking at it, looking through a mirror, how does it reflect? How does it reflect on us? How do we see it? How do we see it? I think it's important to, it's another conversation. It's another conversation. Bobby? Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Well, I felt very good because I was able to finally get I was able to get the movie. And this was after spending 2.5 hours on the phone with a lovely person from the library trying to put Kanopy because I couldn't get Bliss. I mean, I couldn't get the movie before this. And after he worked with me for 2.5 hours, we couldn't get it. So I was very frustrated. And then that night it popped in, everything we had done. All of a sudden, I got Kanopy. So I wrote to him and I thanked the poor kid that helped me, for 2.5 hours with this. But has Bliss been taken off of Kanopy?
I don't know. I haven't gone back to see.
I couldn't get it. I wanted to watch that also, but I enjoyed the movie thoroughly. I spent a lot of time, not a lot, but I've spent time in Hamburg. I spent summers with a friend who took your courses from Wales, who was active in government and trade and vacationing. And they have a conference, and every other year it's in Hamburg. And we were there. And the first year we were there, we were in a wonderful hotel that was near the train station, near the convention hall. And the second year we were also, but they told us to be very careful around the area because they were holding immigration in part of the train station. And there were also students there from whatever that were kind of had taken over some of the area. And I understand that this time they did not stay in that area. It was too dangerous. And I've also know somebody also who was a Turkish, who had grown up in Germany and then come to this country. So the movie really hit home to me. I really enjoyed thoroughly the movie. I've never been to Turkey, but I thoroughly enjoyed, the movie. And now I'm hoping I can get the other movies on Kanopy when I
Yes,
have
you
to.
will.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bobby. Thank you. Lynn?
I don't know which one's going to answer. I don't know why there's
Well,
two
you're
of me.
on. You're on.
I don't know. Anyway, I loved it most of all because almost every movie we see is linear, and this was like a full circle. It had no beginning, middle, and end, and I loved that about the movie, and you could almost see all the missed moments because it was circular. So I found that really entertaining. There's not a whole lot of movies that are circular like this. So thank you. I loved it.
A pleasure. A pleasure. Who else? Anybody else out there? Yes, Wendy, and then Phyllis, like before. Wendy, you got to unmute.
Okay.
There you
So
go.
what I really thought the humanistic part of the son was here he was of Turkish father, Turkish background, Turkish food and everything. And he goes to Hamburg and he gets an education and he becomes very German and very comfortable in the language and the literature and very comfortable. And then all the issues that happen, he goes back with what happened with his father. And at the very, very end, as he's driving through Turkey, and I've been there, the land, I mean, it moves, there are valleys and hills and what have you. The very end, he's happiest when he's at the seashore of the Bosporus. And I thought to myself, with all the education, with all the exposure, with all that he endured, he was happiest when he was home in Turkey.
Yes, he was. He was. He was in the moment. He was in the moment. It is an awesome moment for him. Thank you. Phyllis.
Just another thought I had about the similarities of the mothers and daughters, that Yeter was a very strong-willed, confident woman and determined, and her daughter was too. I mean, she was single-minded about being a revolutionary and fighting for the cause she believed in. So the two of them were like, both sides of the coin. And the other pair were kind-hearted people. I mean, the daughter was so kind to help her friend and selflessly give her money and time and love. And the mother, too, was tolerant because she cared about her daughter. And they were both, you see in families how there's a similarity in values and behavior. The other thing I think maybe Wendy mentioned, or Lynn, that, the capriciousness of life. I mean, we all felt that when he took down the picture, and how Ten changed her name. If she had just used her name,
Yes.
it solved all the problem. And how the gun at the end, it was just like a minute of happenstance. I mean, it just meant nothing. This girl was killed for nothing. But life is like that, we pass things all the time. We turn left and we have one life, and we turn right and we have another one. And this film really put that all into it. So thank you.
That's great. No, it's great. It is. It's true. It's each of the moments of death in the film, just happens. It just happens. It's so indiscriminate. It just, one, he slaps her and she obviously hit her head, and that was that. It's not that's why, he sort of, what he does by putting the title in, Yetter's death. Okay. We know she's going to die, but it's not the fact that she's going to die. It's how indiscriminate it is. That it's not, it wasn't a planned murder. She didn't do something to deserve it, in each one. Here it's a child picking up the gun and not knowing what he's doing and just shoots. It just shows you the randomness of this kind of thing. It is the randomness of life, as you say. Would turn left, turn right. Which way do you go, and with what's going to happen? It is true. It is true. Terrific. Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody else have anything they'd like to share? Nobody.
Can't wait for the next film.
Well, okay. Speaking of the next film, for March, your theme in March is called A Little Noir Music. A Little Noir Music. We go from classic to screwball with noir. It's time for us to explore the rhythm of the underworld through two very different lenses. A legendary French masterpiece of silent precision. Not a silent movie, but there's not a lot of dialogue. It's a movie of silent precision and a sharp Japanese comedy that proves even a hitman can lose his beat. Even a hitman can lose his beat. The first film is called Le Samurai, and it is a classic of film noir. It is a classic of style. It is a classic of movie making. It's just a fabulous film. I think it is. And it stars the legendary, who passed away this past year, Alain Delon, in a role that made him equally famous, called Le Samurai. It's not Japanese. It is French, and very French. Music-wise, the story-wise, it's just terrific. And the other film you'll see in March is called Key of Life. Key of Life. Speaking of music, speaking of beats, it's a Japanese film of changing identities and just a lot of mayhem, but a lot of fun, So I'll look forward to discussing those, having a conversation about those films next month. So, anybody else have anything they'd like to add before we go?
Shelly?
Yeah.
Do you ever comment on some of the films for the Academy, for the Oscars?
I have a lot of comments about films for the Oscars, but particularly what?
Well, I was particularly wondering about if you happen to see or would ever talk about a film like Sinners.
Not to the group. I would, it's not a foreign language film. But when I see you, or if you want to over email, we can have a conversation about it. It is worthy of a conversation. I found it to be an incredible film. There's certain moments in it that just knocked me out in terms of filmmaking. But there are some interesting films this year which I recommend you all see. Some of which I'm not going to mention because hopefully maybe we'll be able to talk about them here. Although I can mention them and you'll see it twice, which will give you much more power coming into the conversation. I would say you have to see Sentimental Value. Is an incredible film. It's up for the Academy Award. But the films up for Best Picture are Train Dreams.
That was unbelievable.
That film blew me away. Hamnet. My money, I think Hamlet's the best film. I think, and it's my reasons, may not be anybody else's reasons. I think what it displays is the legacy of storytelling, the legacy of Shakespeare, the fact that he's endured and he will endure. And that's what that film shows, is the endurance of the man who is the watershed moment in in modern storytelling. So and for that, the film deserves the award. There are so many good films. There are some good films out there that I recommend. It was just an accident. Jafar Pahani's film, the Iranian film, another masterwork in Iranian cinema. It's just, I mean, they're wonderful films, and I hope to be doing, want to do. It was only an accident and sentimental value. So you can look forward to it one of these days. But yeah, I mean, it's I can comment on any of them, but we don't want to do that here. I don't want to take up your time.
Is there supposed to be the Fort Lauderdale International Film Festival? I put it on my calendar for some reason, and I haven't heard anything about it. Do you know anything?
It's usually in November. It's usually in
Oh,
November.
really?
I used to
I
sit.
read that it was delayed until February because they
You
got
might
a
be
new
right. You might be right. They're always having a lot of problems. I mean, I did a program there years ago for about 4 or 5 years, and I sat on their board for a while. I was a judge for them, but they have problems. It's difficult. It's a difficult festival.
Phyllis,
Uh,
if you check Facebook, there's been a lot about it on Facebook, and I've been getting emails about it. There are fewer films this time, but because apparently they're not in as many locations. So there's information out there if
All right,
you
thank
check
you.
for it.
So
Sure.
they're going from the longest film festival to the shortest film festival.
Where where can we find this movie for next time?
Where do you think?
Kanopy.
Kanopy.
You got it. You got it. They're both on Kanopy. And if you still aren't on Kanopy and want to get there, just drop me a note. I'll give you the information. Very
No, I've
easy.
got the information. The problem was getting it onto my iPad. Now I
The,
got to try to get it on my regular television, but
the app. You mean
if I
the
have to
app?
watch it in the iPad, it's fine. I'll do it.
You can get the app on your TV. You can get
I,
the app on your TV, Bobby. You can do it. Don't worry, you can do it.
I'm too okay.
No, but you can also cast. You're able to
Yeah.
cast. That's what I have been doing. It's an app through my phone. I have Kanopy on my phone, and then I could cast it to my TV.
Yeah, you can mirror it on your TV. But it's not that hard. This is just you have a smart TV, go to your apps and put in Kanopy and then just download it to your TV. It'll
I
immediately
will
appear.
try. I don't have a 7-year-old around to help me with it.
Well, yeah, I understand that. Anybody else have anything they'd like to add this evening? Okay, well, thank you all
Thank you.
for your patience and your time and your comments and your